This week we have instant justice, bad drivers, crazy crashes, and more. Plus, we've got a new way for fans to show their support for the channel, so keep watching to learn all about it. Junior was headed home from a friend's house when the driver of a Ford Edge lost control before ricocheting off a guardrail. Before Junior had a chance to react, the SUV had ended up in front of his Honda Odyssey. Junior told us the SUV was behind his A-pillar, and he only remembers the airbag suddenly activating as he T-boned it. 5 occupants, including a child, jumped out of the SUV and ran away before Junior was able to reach them. By the time police arrived a few minutes later, they had all disappeared into the night. The SUV was a rental, and the police are still searching for the people who'd been in it. Junior is now waiting to hear back from the police. This submitter was stopped on the side of a road where the speed limit is about 40 miles per hour. Without warning, a Hyundai Tucson going way above the speed limit smashed into his rear tire. Our submitter told us that neither he nor the other driver were injured. The Hyundai driver accepted liability, and police responded and watched our submitter's dashcam footage at the scene. His BMW was towed to a body shop where it is now waiting to be inspected. It had around 12,000 miles on the odometer at the time of the collision. Our submitter thinks the Hyundai will be totaled even after it somehow avoided rolling completely over. This submitter was driving in a 65-mile-per-hour zone of I-5 when a Range Rover sped past him. He thinks it was going over 90 miles per hour. Before long, our submitter saw a California Highway Patrol Dodge Charger approaching quickly behind him, so he moved over to let him past. He told us he was going over 100 and I knew what was about to go down. Once the Charger was behind the Range Rover, the officer lit up his party lights and pulled the driver over for some instant justice. This made our submitter's day, and he gave the Range Rover driver a thumbs up as he drove by. Robert was on his way home from visiting a friend when he suddenly encountered a tree that had fallen across the road. By the time he'd spotted it, it was too late for him to do anything about it. Robert told us his phone detected the collision and called for help automatically. Thankfully, he wasn't hurt, and firefighters quickly responded and removed the tree from the road. Sadly, Robert's 2004 Ford Explorer was totaled after the repair estimate came to $4,800 US. 6 months later, he replaced it with a 2006. Chandler was entering I-66 when he drove past something on the shoulder that he didn't notice until watching his dashcam footage later. He called it a bed frame, but I'm not sure what it is. Not long after, he watched a driver ahead of him suddenly swerve and nearly hit another vehicle as they dodged around some sort of furniture pad in the road. Once again, he called it a mattress, but I have my doubts. Obviously, somebody lost some items while driving down the road. What do you think they were? Post your theory in the comments. A few minutes later, Chandler passed a red pickup pulled over on the shoulder. Chandler reported the road debris on Waze to warn other drivers. He told us he bought his dashcam after watching Wham Bam videos, and he even used our coupon code. You can find it in the video description. Mason was driving home when a kid riding a bicycle suddenly flew into the road in front of him. Thankfully, Mason was able to swerve and brake to avoid hitting the cyclist, but he told us he braked so hard it made his anti-lock brakes activate. He made sure the kid was okay before continuing. Chris was on his way home when he was rear-ended in a tunnel by a driver who wasn't watching the road. Both drivers exchanged insurance information, and the other driver was found at fault for the collision. Repairing Chris's Toyota RAV4 cost $8,000 US. Chris wanted to remind our viewers to stay off their phones while driving, both for their own safety and for the safety of others. Adnap was with a friend headed toward Vancouver when a trucker began merging into their lane after briefly turning on his turn signal. Both Adnap and the trucker honked at each other until Adnap eventually backed off to avoid being sideswiped. They continued on their way after passing the semi-truck in the travel lane. Chase watched a driver on his right attempt to creatively run a red light, only to get T-boned by an SUV making a protected left turn. I think we've seen this sort of maneuver before. Make a right on red, then make an illegal U-turn, then make another right on red, but this time it didn't work out for the scofflaw. Chase pulled over and provided his dashcam footage. Thankfully, there were no injuries. Chase left before hearing who was found responsible by the police, but he said they kept mentioning the protected left turn. Adrian was going downtown to go to work when a city bus began merging into his lane after leaving that lane only moments earlier. Adrian considers himself lucky that he had space to the right to avoid a collision. He told us he sent a complaint to the city, but they never contacted him. He also told us our videos were the main reason he got a dashcam in the first place. If you're a fan, hit that subscribe button. It's free! Gray was running late for work when a Nissan Altima merged into the side of his Chevy Cruze before driving off. Gray pulled over and called the South Carolina Highway Patrol, and he was able to use his dashcam footage to provide them with the Altima's license plate number. They looked up the driver's insurance info and gave it to him. Sadly, when Gray called the insurance provider later that same day, they told him the insurance policy was no longer active. This submitter spotted another Tesla behaving badly.
That Tesla man can't drive. That Tesla man can't drive.
A Model Y driver turned from a straight-only lane and across our submitter's lane, ignoring her Kia Soul and her horn. She told us they had zero cares for anyone else on the road. This submitter watched an SUV cut across the road in front of a truck and get T-boned. Our submitter honked in an attempt to warn the other drivers, but it was too late. He told us he later heard that firefighters had to pry the SUV's door open so the driver could get out. With his company car in the shop, David was headed to work in his project car when he had a close call with a daredevil deer. David told us he wishes he had anti-lock brakes in his 1987 Pontiac Sunbird. Thankfully, he was able to dodge the deer and continue cautiously to work. We've got 6 more videos to show you today, but as long as David is working on his project car, we've got one modification he should definitely make: a pair of our new vinyl decals. He told us he's been watching our videos since early Wham Bam Tesla Cam, and what better way for him to show he's a fan than by picking up some of these gorgeous decals in either black or white. David will have no trouble applying the decal himself, and they come in a pack of 2 along with his choice of Tesla Cam or Dashcam logo stickers, all made of weatherproof 3M automotive vinyl. We'll get back to the crashes in a second, but if you need a set of decals for your ride, they're being sold by our friends at Test Bros, and you'll find the link in the description. Josh was passing a Chevy Sonic when the driver suddenly merged into his lane, sideswiping his VW Jetta. Both drivers pulled over, and Josh told us the other driver, well, let's just say he smelled a little funny. The collision left a dent on his fender, so they exchanged insurance information before continuing. You know what would cover up that dent perfectly? One of our stickers! Okay, I'll move on. You can't blame a guy for trying. Chris was on his way to deliver bread in a box truck when he encountered a driver exiting the highway using the on-ramp.
You need to turn around. You need to go that way. And you're going the wrong way.
Chris told us he had a line of cars behind him as he blocked the other driver from continuing. She insisted that he move and let her by, but he wouldn't budge. Eventually, she did turn around before heading back onto the highway to hopefully exit using an off-ramp instead. Chris told us, always pay attention and keep off your phone. Kai was headed home from college one afternoon when traffic ahead of him on the on-ramp to I-10 stopped abruptly, forcing him to slam on his brakes. Kai's Chevy S10 was suddenly rear-ended by a Ford F-150 being driven by one of his classmates. Kai told us the F-150 hit him at 60 miles per hour, destroying a taillight and damaging the rear bumper. Thankfully, nobody was seriously injured, and the F-150 driver admitted fault. Neither of them notified first responders, and Kai wanted to shout out his classmate for being a good sport and an awesome friend. Shadell was driving when he approached an intersection where cross-traffic had stop signs, but Shadell did not. The driver of a pickup with a camper on it, who was clearly on his phone by the way, waved at Shadell after running his stop sign, forcing Shadell to stop and honk to avoid a collision. Shadell told us he had all 3 of his kids in his Toyota Sienna, and if he hadn't been paying attention, it would have been a bad crash. Mike watched a white Lexus drive right through a red light without even touching the brakes until they were already in the intersection. The Lexus T-boned a Jeep Wrangler, totaling it. Since no injuries were immediately reported, the LAPD chose not to respond to the scene. This next video comes from Fremont, California, where I'm sure nobody was surprised to see a Tesla Cybertruck driving down the highway. By the way, the RC decal on the sides of the truck do not stand for remote controlled. They actually indicate that this vehicle is a release candidate, meaning a prototype being driven for testing purposes. This isn't the first prototype footage our fans have sent us, and last week we even showed a production model driving through a neighborhood. Love it or hate it, Joshua told us there was no way to miss this unique-looking vehicle.
Wham! Bam, we got a Patreon, man. Please support the show.